Bless you. Listen, bless you.
The hour being after 7:30, it's my pleasure to call the September 27, 2018 school committee to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Our second order of business is the Walpole High School student report.
Hello everyone, I'm Maggie Jackson, senior at Walpole High. With the new motive of pride, positivity, respect, integrity, drive, and empathy, many can see that our school's atmosphere is improving and becoming more active in events. There has been more of a turnout of sporting events and our Rebel Pride Dance that was held September 15th, which was a success. The students have been trying to incorporate this into their everyday lifestyles, being in the classroom, at practice, or anywhere they may be. The Journalism Club is coming out with their first paper of the year on October 4th. This will be filled with the great content that the students a part of journalism work hard on. The Yearbook Club is also trying to get all of the seniors' baby pictures, senior pictures, and quotes to finalize and perfect the yearbook for the 2018 school year. Walpole High School Library is hosting the Moth Storytelling event on Thursday, October 4th at 7 p.m. All are welcome. The theme of the Moth is Random Acts of Kindness. Speakers will share how an act of kindness had an effect on their life. Walpole Dance Company is having a general interest meeting on Thursday, October 4th at 2:30. The Green Team is gaining more and more kids every day to be a part of helping clean the forest and recycling around the town of Walpole. They are holding a meeting next Monday to plan further events. Walpole Fall Sports are also in session. The records of the fall sports are as follows: boys soccer 3-2-3, girls soccer 2-4-2, field hockey 8-0, men's golf 2-3, football 2-1, volleyball 5-2, both girls and boys cross country 2-2. That concludes what has been happening at Walpole High recently. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Please feel free to stay if you'd like, but we know there's a number of things pulling on you as a young student, so it's okay if you leave as well.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie.
Next item on the agenda is the out-of-state field trip. Walpole High School Concert Band, Concert Chorus, and Orchestra to New York City, New York, from April 26, 2019 to April 28, 2019.
So this evening we have Music Department Chairperson Kenneth Cable here, and he will give us some details. He has stepped out of his sick bed to join us this evening, so I asked him not to breathe on me. But as he's coming up to the podium, I do want to congratulate Ken on orchestrating the rebuilding of the music department. No pun intended, or was there a pun intended? And he has conducted himself admirably. So, Ken?
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
So thanks for having me. So this is now going into my 5th year, believe it or not, and so we thought it was time as department we wanted to take the students on a trip, and so we looked at a few different options, and performance arts consultant seemed to kind of offer what we were looking for in terms of providing kids with a great festival experience where they get to see other performers. They're going to get feedback based on their performances, and have a clinic along in that festival. So that's kind of like the main event for the trip. We'll also get to do some great sightseeing, as well as catch a Broadway show on the way back. So it's kind of a quick visit to New York, but one I think the kids will really enjoy. And I'm sure many of them haven't been, so this is going to be a great experience for them. And having lived there for 6 years, I have a lot of things that I can share with them when we get there. So.
Excellent, Ken. Thank you. So it looks like it's about $682 per student.
Correct.
And the ratio is 7 or 8 students to 1 chaperone, which is within our limits, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So I would recommend this educational opportunity for our music students.
I think this is a wonderful opportunity. I think maybe could you just for a minute go into a little bit more about the festival itself and how it allows you guys to sort of not only compete against other groups, but sort of there's like a learning piece and a sort of a collaboration and sort of a.
Right. So I mean, in any festival that you go to, obviously it's a culminating event for the ensemble because you spend all the time working on the concepts and skills and the music, and so then you get a chance to actually perform it, which is a lot different than being in a rehearsal setting. But getting to do it in a venue like this is exciting for the kids. So that, I mean, first and foremost, is a great experience. But then also getting the feedback from the clinicians and from the adjudicators. And they will come and work with the ensemble after your performance, and they'll give you some, share some ideas with, what they really enjoyed with it and things that they think you can improve on for the next performance. And of course, there are awards. That's not really the reason why we do it, but obviously that's something that we would have at the end of it. So the award ceremony is being held at medieval times. So.
Excellent.
It seems like such a great, I know Mrs. Cyrek is also a music geek like I am. We talk about it often, and I think it's such a great thing for the kids to be able to get sort of an outside critical perspective on how they're doing. And we used to do this when I was in school here, and you kind of came back with not only a lot of feedback, and it was an awesome time, but I think it also you'd say, oh, they did this. Can we sing this next year?
Right, and you get to see other groups and how they do things.
And I think that's a great thing too.
Raises the bar.
I know, as always, you come back and we hear from our colleagues in other towns that our Walpole kids are always well behaved and great in places, in events like this. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I'd be happy to take a motion for a vote to approve this field trip to New York City.
Great. Go for it. All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Walpole High School Concert Band, Concert Chorus, and Orchestra to New York City from April 26th through the 28th, 2019.
Second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Cyrek, is seconded by Ms. Gaotitz. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
Thank you, and best wishes to the 120 students taking to New York City.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Excellent. Our next order of business is the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Representative and Superintendent Transition Plan.
And Dorothy Presser has been invited. Thank you to Nancy Gallivan for reaching out. She had chaired the Suburban Coalition, I believe, together. And tonight we're looking at different options to transition the superintendency.
Okay, so thank you for having me. Congratulations, Dr. Lynch.
Yep.
So you're very aware that one of your prime responsibilities as school committee members is to hire and evaluate the superintendent, and you're at the point now where you're thinking about what's your transition. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about conducting the search, some different options that you have, the pros and cons of those choices, and the factors that you may want to consider as you're going into this process. So there's a range of what you can do. You could appoint a superintendent without doing a search. That's within the purview of the school committee. You could do an internal search followed by an external search if need be, or you can do an external search where you invite internal candidates to apply. If you're thinking about an internal search first, it's often good for morale because people recognize that there's the opportunity to move up in the district. And strong succession leadership is often a good sign of a good organization. If internal candidates, on the con side, if internal candidates apply and are passed over, it can have the opposite effect on morale. On the plus side of this, it's the least expensive and least time-consuming of the different options that you have. If you do an external search with internal candidates invited to apply, it may seem that you're sending unintended negative messages to potential internal candidates. It also can have an effect on the external candidates that do apply. If they know that there's an internal candidate in the search, they are sometimes reluctant to spend the time applying if they just think that this is a way to sort of promote an internal candidate. It's the more time-consuming, obviously, and more costly than doing an internal search. But if you decide to do an internal search first, it doesn't diminish the quality of the candidates that you would get in an external search. So some of the factors that you might want to think about as you're considering the direction you want to go in, first of all, the community. This is the school committee's decision, but you represent the community. So you want people to feel that the new superintendent is there because he or she is qualified to lead the district. And if the community has confidence that the school committee is making good decisions and things are running smoothly, they'll also be accepting of the school committee's decision. Most often, searches start with a survey of all the stakeholders, so of staff, of parents, of the community at large. And that gives you information about the qualifications that people are looking for in a candidate. And you add that information to your thoughts about the next superintendent, and you make up a list of qualifications of what you're looking for. So no matter how you decide to proceed with the search, your job really is to match the candidate to the qualifications. Whether you're do internal search first or an external, you're always matching candidate to qualifications. So if you decide to start with the internal search and you find that the internal candidate matches the qualifications, then really your job is done. You might also want to think about the current conditions in superintendent searches. We're still sort of living with that Prop 2.5, which drove a lot of teachers who would be moving up now to superintendencies and those high-level positions out of the profession. So the pools are smaller than they used to be. A significant majority of the candidates lately are not sitting superintendents. They're attempting to move up into the superintendency, and actually a fair number of them are principals that don't have central office experience. So it's kind of a different pool than it might have been a while ago, and that's something to consider. So when you're thinking about maybe an internal versus an internal candidate has experience in the district and needs to learn the job, you may very well find that many of the people in the pool of external candidates both need to learn the district and the job. There's also the cost. It can vary widely. Little plug, MASC tends to be less than other consultants because you're already our members. But the cost you can do the search yourself, which would have minimal costs. You can hire a search consultant, which can be close to $50,000 depending on who you hire by the time you've paid the consultant fee, advertising fees, postage, travel, all the things that are involved in that. And you may also want to think about, if you're having external candidates, if you're paying for site visits, school committee to go on site visits, candidates to come, and so forth. That can add to the cost. Another thing to think about is the capacity of the community and of the committee to spend the time on the search. It takes time, and you need to consider how much work is involved. If you're thinking of doing the search yourself, you might want to you need to make sure actually that you have the capacity within the committee to run that search, that there's someone who can, either an administrator, an administrative assistant, the school committee, who has the capacity to do all the administrative logistics of running the search. And really, in my experience, you really need to have experienced school committee members. School committee members without a lot of experience, who haven't been through a search process, haven't been on a school committee a long time, struggle with all the aspects of doing a search on their own. Another little plug, if you do the search yourself, MASC does provide technical assistance. Another thing to think about is sort of the lay of the land. You may have looked at other communities that have done searches different ways. Maybe they've done an internal search, maybe they've done an external search with internal employees and ended up with the internal employee as their superintendent. Glenn Kuchar likes to say, if you know what one school committee does, you know what one school committee does. So it's really very community specific. What works for one community may not work in another community. So rather than looking at what neighboring communities have done, you really want to focus inward and think what's best for Walpole in doing the search. So those are some of the different aspects to consider, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Well, first off, thank you for making the trip out. And from is it Wayland?
Linfield.
Linfield.
Yep.
I know Middlesex County is like this big flag for us Norfolk County folks. But we're incredibly grateful initially just to be part of the MASC and the support that your organization gives to the membership of this committee and has. We love your mail. We get a lot of it. We get a lot of it after we leave the school committee, and when we come back, we're still on the mailing list, so we're happy about that. But I think that I want to kick it off to my colleagues because I know they have a lot of questions. But what really strikes me is I knew you were going to get a Glenn Kucharism in at one point in your talk, but that really it's a differentiated process for everyone. And the other thing that really struck me, I just put an underline in it, is that the pools are smaller and that many districts are hiring people who are not sitting superintendents, where that it seems like when I was first on, now 9 years ago, that was not the case, that there were more superintendents in the mix.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I made a note on. But again, we're just very grateful to have you as a resource and MASC as a resource, and some of my colleagues may have some further questions. Mrs. Gayotsitz.
Yes, I mean, I've heard of you before and been at Suburban Coalition meetings, but I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your qualifications and experience with searches a little bit, just to fill the public in, and then it would be helpful for me to know, what neighboring towns are doing and neighboring, districts, people you've worked with.
Okay. My qualifications, first of all, I am a 20-year member of my school committee. So from that aspect, I've done a couple of searches or been involved in a couple of searches. Every field director at MASC does searches. And we work with each other to make sure the searches go smoothly. I kind of lost track of how many I've done. I've done in the past couple years 5 or 6 searches, along with giving technical assistance to some communities, along with helping some committees find, interim superintendents. So it's sort of something that we're constantly doing in the office. Right now we're not doing any searches, which last year we were already doing 3 or 4 searches in September, either finding an interim or helping someone segue into a permanent position. When we do the searches, it is your search. We make sure that the search that we're providing is what you want, so that we're not any candidates that we bring for you. We show you all the candidates, which isn't necessarily true, and we take your guidance in how the search runs. We give you guidance in what we think will work, but we also take your guidance in how the search plays out.
And can you just explain MASC a little bit? I mean, I have worked with you guys, but just so the public.
Okay, so MASC is the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. Maybe for lack of a better way to describe it, it's because mostly everyone's a volunteer, it's your professional organization.
Great.
There are a lot of services that we provide to you because you're members. A lot of what we do is training on the, we provide workshops on district governance. So what are the best practices of school committees and how can we help school committees develop those good practices? We facilitate workshops as school committees request that we facilitate workshops for them. We provide policy guidance, and we, as an ancillary service, do superintendent searches. And the other piece of what we do is advocacy on behalf of school committees to the state and federal level.
And how about other districts? What you've seen from other districts in terms of
what I've seen, so the searches that I've been involved in lately have been, we wouldn't get involved in a search very much unless it was the external search. Internal searches are usually managed internally, maybe with some technical assistance from us in process. The searches that I've been involved in, I can safely say that the majority of candidates have been not sitting superintendents. There was one search when I was thinking, I wonder if a sitting superintendent is even going to apply. And the searches have all ended well. They've all ended with people being a good match. That's what we always are working for, that match of the district to the superintendent. And that a lot of that plays out in the process of interviewing.
And we always benchmark and like to know what our peers are doing. Do you have any information on that, like towns around us, what they're doing?
I have not done any searches in surrounding towns. I know that there are a couple surrounding towns who in the past several years have promoted internal candidates. I don't really know if that was with an external search or whether that was through an internal process that then did not go on to an external process. I do know of one community that didn't do a search, that just appointed without a search.
Mrs. Gallivan.
I just want to thank you, Dorothy. As the superintendent said, Dorothy and I have been friends for years, and I think I've learned a lot from attending MASC conferences too, because you get a chance to network with people as they are going through changes in their districts. And I think that it's fair to say that the superintendent pool isn't as strong as it was 10 or 15 years ago, partially because of what you were saying, the Proposition 2.5 part. The job is just, you're under a microscope, and it's rather tough at this point. But I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, what do you think a committee should do to make the next superintendent as successful as possible when we're at this stage? Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned survey the community, and you know, look for the right match. Do you have sort of updated job descriptions that, or like mistakes that people have made that we should avoid, whether it's contracts or, I'm just sort of beginning to think a little bit down the road.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing you can do right now is to develop those qualifications, mm-hmm. and have a target in your mind of, we want a superintendent who shares our vision and values. Yes. I mean, to me, finding that match, that superintendent that can come and feel like this is home to me, I can carry on the work here. This fits with my skill set, with my vision, with my core values. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, right now, that would be the most important thing that you can think about, is defining those well so that you can adequately advertise and interview.
And we have been aware of the job market for a while. So, we've been working hard to make sure that we have developed leaders within. So we really may want to just take advantage of that possibility of doing an internal search. You mentioned that MASC can provide technical assistance. Can you explain a little bit about that part of it?
So we can help guide you through setting up a search committee, some thoughts about who should be, the representation of who should be on it. Make sure that you're aware of all the open meeting law issues that would be involved in a search committee and, going forward with the search. Questions, list of questions, like a sort of a compilation of what questions might you want to ask. Just really anything that you say, how do we do this?
Okay.
What is your recommendation here? How can we make sure that this goes smoothly? We'll step in.
I, for one, would like to keep that door open because, we may need that potential help. And related to Jen's question about other towns, I did do some looking just because that's what I do. And I know that there are a number of towns nearby that have a person who has moved up through the ranks in their town. Foxborough does, Westwood does, Hopkinton does, North Attleboro does, and
Mansfield.
Pardon me?
Mansfield too.
Mansfield, I know that Norwood does not, and I know that Natick is trying to decide who their next superintendent is going to be right now, and it could go either way there. So I think that we have some time to talk to people in other towns too. But it's a general mixture, and I think Dorothy covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I really think you talk to people in other towns. Obviously, sharing experiences and networking is always a good idea. But once again, I would bring you back to, think about your situation in your town and do what you feel makes the most sense for Walpole.
Thank you.
It's also part of Nancy's question. She referenced the survey, and I was going to ask if you had any, it's probably too broad a question, if you had any sort of key questions that you tend to ask.
We can send you a sample survey.
But then that was going to
Yeah.
be my next question,
Yeah.
especially for the community, just
Yeah.
to get input.
A lot, you know, the questions really are pretty basic. What do you see as the strengths of the district? What do you see as the challenges the district is facing, to kind of get a feel for how people are viewing things right now? And, you know, what do you see as the skills the next superintendent would need to be successful? What qualifications do you think the superintendent? So pretty basic, and, you know, always room for comment, but, you know, we give people some things to pick from and get.
So it tends to be open-ended questions.
Yeah, well, open-ended, but with choices to sort of get them thinking a little bit about,
Might
you
be
know,
hard.
naming some
Right,
qualifications rather than just like, what do you think? So, yeah, we can send a copy of
That
the
would be
survey.
great. I wondered if you had like a favorite survey that's
Yeah.
constructive.
Yeah. And we actually, the other thing, we talk about focus groups and surveys. One of the things that we found is because of the ability to do like a Survey Monkey type survey, focus groups get much less attendance than they used to get. And surveys tend to be the way to gather the information.
That's interesting. Thank you. Mrs. Gallivan.
Speaking of that, we reached out to Dorothy and got some questions already. So we have a draft of what we're thinking about doing. And, you know, I think that might be our first piece of technical advice that we'll ask you to take a look at. Because we knew that we wanted to move forward with that. And if everything goes right, our survey is going out on Monday, so.
Okay, I'll get cracking getting
There you go.
getting those suggestions to you.
Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time to join us here this evening. To Mrs. Gallivan's point, to the wider community, we're looking at getting your, beginning to solicit your feedback around this most important hire in our district on Monday, and we also have focus groups that we're looking at scheduling and solidifying the exact time and place where we would, again, like to hear from people. And this whole agenda item has been about plugs. I will again plug the fact that we do have the mechanism for all members of our community, especially our parent community, to reach out to us through the school committee email, which is found under the school committee tab on the website. And you can always, if you are unable to, if you want to say more on the survey, or if you're unable to make one of the future workshops, one of the future meetings, we'd love to hear from you directly. Just write us an email. I think, in closing, I think about one of our former members, Mr. Ed Thomas, who's a longtime teacher, and he talks about how when you choose a superintendent, it's often an aspirational choice. It's a choice where we look towards the 21st, you know, in our case, the 21st century, in his case, maybe the 20th, but we look towards where the district is going and what those needs are. So we're very excited. This is one of the three things, I'm sorry.
I'm big on adding goal setting to the mix of.
Okay.
I'm add that as the fourth. So
One of the four things that we under Chapter 70 are empowered to do as school committee members, and we want to make that decision with a tremendous amount of community input. And we're excited, you know, to hear from folks, and we're very grateful for our professional organization's help in that. And thank you for coming.
It was my pleasure to be here, and you know where to find me if you have any follow-up questions. So please feel free.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Moving on, under new business, we have the Special Education Program Report. Dr. Cooley.
Good evening. So I'm going to hit just a few salient points in terms of special ed and student service here at the start of the year, and then if you have any questions, certainly feel free at the end. I think overall it's been a good start, a positive start to the school year. Some positive things have gone on, and there are some glitches that I'll talk about towards the end. I think in terms of demographics, by my count this past week, just some numbers to give you. The number of in-district IEPs that we have currently are 494. And in looking at relative to about this time last year, according to our October 1st SIMS data, In 2017, we're at 503. So there haven't been a real big swing in population in terms of special ed from this time last year to now. A small swing has occurred in terms of the out-of-district population. Currently, we stand at 42 students, whereas at this time last year, we were at 59. I know last spring we graduated a number of students, and I know a number of students turned 22 and aged out of the program during the course of last school year. So we are down a little bit in terms of that particular population. But I think overall, we haven't seen a big swing in population in special ed from where we were at this time last year. The next point is the CPR, Coordinated Program Review. You may remember last year, Walpole was due for its Coordinated Program Review of special ed. The group visited in late May for their on-site visit, which occurred after the district self-assessment submission. They were here for 3 full days. And the reason why this is salient now is that we are getting feedback from that visit. Over the summer, we got our draft report from that visit, and very recently, as last week, we got our final report from that visit. I look at it as very positive. Out of 59 different special education regulations that they look at, we had a finding of noncompliance in one of them, which in my personal experience is very, very good. So I'm very happy with that, and I think it's a compliment to the staff who work in this department and really throughout the district. There are a number of interviews with both special ed folks, general ed folks, related service, administration, so it's really a compliment to the district. Myself, Dr. Kenny, Dr. Goff met with the DESE representative actually today to talk about corrections for that item in terms of special ed that we'll need to make, which is really minor. It's really a language issue on a form letter that we use. So, third, this year, I've had discussions with Dr. Kenny, Dr. Goff, and a couple of the principals about pursuing a grant that DESE is putting out, a Safe and Supportive Schools grant. I've had some personal experience with this grant in my previous district, so we decided to move ahead and apply for it. This grant will provide, if we're successful, $10,000 per building with a max of 2 buildings to build 2 teams to do a self-assessment of our school culture and what ways can we improve safety and supportive services within our buildings. We anticipate hearing from DESE on that within the next couple of weeks. So we will keep our fingers crossed and hope that comes to fruition. The next item that I have, again, you may know Longview Farm has been closed for the last several months, and there has been activity to reopen their doors both on the residential side of their facility and the school side of their facility. Myself, the out-of-district coordinator for the district, Christina Pine, and a couple of administrators, I know Mr. Imbush, Mr. Hahn, visited Longview over the summer to check in with them as to the progress that they're making. We continue to have meetings. I know Ms. Pine meets with them on a regular basis to chart their progress and getting ready for students to return to their residence, which should be happening very shortly. I know they're taking referrals for that, and we're looking to improve the process and procedures in terms of having students enter our buildings when they do enter the campus. Myself and Dr. Kenny do have a phone call tomorrow to talk more about the school side of their campus. And then finally, one area where we have had a little bit of difficulty here in opening, and sometimes this does happen with openings, is the area of transportation. We have had some difficulties with a particular vendor in terms of their pickup times and really in missed pickups with a certain cohort of students. This is affecting specifically some of our out-of-district students and students who fall under McKinney-Vento, who may be coming from other districts back to our buildings. We did send home a letter to the impacted families last week. We are working with the vendor both on a short-term solution and longer-term solution to restore the quality of service that we've been used to. So that's all the topics I have.
Thank you very much. I have two questions just to start. One, how many McKinney-Vento students do we have now? There's not that many, right? The budget number is much smaller.
Yeah, when we submitted our data last year, 9, 10 in that area.
And that's way down from.
It's volatile. We've gone from 80,000 a year to 10,000 up to 36 to 48. I suspect this year will be around 40.
Okay.
$40,000.
And just secondly, it's sort of a thank you and a comment and a question. With the Longview Farm thing, I know that's a huge piece of sort of interdepartmental work between yourself, the Walpole Police Department, the Board of Selectmen's office, and I know that the Walpole Public Schools put the safety and security of those students at the forefront in all these dealings. But do you feel now that in your interactions with Longview Farm, we've had a bit of a rocky road? Do you feel like you're getting a better sort of user interface with them?
I have confidence on the residential side that there's some open ears as to where the district is coming from on certain issues, and I think including the district and using the district's knowledge in terms of IEPs, student placement, what's in the best interest of students. I think the conversations have improved, and really in 1 year, I started just sort of learning about Longview to then having them close and now reopening. So my baseline isn't a whole lot in terms of my experience, but I think both myself and Ms. Pine are encouraged, at least at the conversations that we're having. We'll see what happens with follow-through when students do start arriving, but we're encouraged by the conversations. The school side, I think I'll know more tomorrow when we talk with them, with Dr. Kenny. So.
Thank you, Dr. Quillian. Mrs. Gallahan.
I just have a couple, and I'm not asking for this tonight, but I know last year you did an internal focus on Walpole High School, and in the near future, I'd like to just be hearing about what changes have been made and how that's going. Are you going to be focusing on one of the other areas this year? And if so, where's your focus going to be?
I actually met with Dr. Taft Farrell yesterday,
Yep.
Along with Colleen Duggan, and we're going to be looking at the district learning program at the Fisher School. That'll
Great,
be our
thank you.
focus. Yeah.
My other question is also about Longview Farm. I was listening to, it probably was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, but somebody was talking about the fact that they are going to open up again. They want to make sure communication is in place properly. But they were also talking about the fact that there's a commitment from Longview Farm to fund a personnel piece of what's needed. And I was glad to hear that, because I remember a couple of years ago, we were trying to quantify how much time an administrator was spending just being that liaison. So when you have your phone call tomorrow, you may want to just make them aware of the fact that you're aware that as it gets clearer how many kids are actually coming into the Walpole schools, or how many kids you're responsible for providing the educational plans for, that you take advantage of the fact that they apparently have committed to, I don't know whether it's a full-time position, but they've committed to a piece of personnel at least.
Yeah, I've heard that also. I think the other thing that encouraged me is a plan to gradually have students enter the residence, where they sort of capped themselves over a certain period of time so as not to overextend themselves too quickly. So I would add
That's
that to
helpful, too.
my encouragement of how things are
That's
going.
good.
So.
One other piece of information, their CEO did commit to students at the high school level. Now, that may have changed from now back to August when we initially met. Is that still true? Are they still focusing on high school students only and just male students?
I don't know about the gender. The
Okay.
age, that was my understanding, is that they are targeting kids who would be of high school age. And I know the school proposal is for students who are of high school age.
Because it seems in the past, some of the greatest issues around student safety and
Right.
well-being were the younger students.
Very young students.
I would say the first residence that they are looking to open looks like it is going to be a male residence.
All right.
Whether they open a female residence, if so, it would be down the road. But I know they're targeting a male residence opening soon.
You know, I think when we look at the demographics, especially from my perspective over the last 12 years, we've gone from 24% special education to 12. And I think that's a testimony to the hard work of the teachers, the support of the school committee for academic supports, like the RTI program has been incredible. Some of the software programs that the educators are bringing in have been very helpful to students. So, you know, I'm encouraged to see those numbers. I think that the more students we can educate within the school system, the less students are out in vans driving an hour to a private school. I'm also encouraged by the number of 42 out-of-district students. That's the lowest I can remember, and it's down from 59 last year. So we're able to build programs that are robust and that parents have faith in them, because a parent has to sign off on every IEP that's proposed. So that's encouraging. We still obviously try to improve every day, and we'll continue to do that. But I think the program is moving in the right direction, and I would submit to you that the transportation program would have been in much worse condition if we didn't have 18 of our own vehicles and didn't have to, and if we had to rely 100% like we used to on outside vendors. I think it would have been a nightmare. We had about 20 different students impacted, which is far beyond reasonable or even expected 1 or 2 or 3 student. You can understand a glitch here or there, but for a company to fall on their face that much in the first month of the school year, especially a company that served us very well over the past year. So we had an emergency meeting with the business managers this year from the area that everyone is contracting with this company. We had a meeting with the superintendents last week where I spoke. It's just unacceptable, and we have a commitment from that company to improve their service. And if they don't, we'll have to look at, we already are looking at other vendors and started to use other vendors whenever we can. But we may have to look at our own vehicles even closer.
Just to add to that, I think the work of Kim Poirier,
Yeah.
without her, I think things would have been a lot worse. But
Right.
the way she has handled the situation has been
Yeah.
incredible, and I think has really minimized what could have been a much bigger problem.
Very good. Anyone else? Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Dr. Quilly.
Thank you, Dr. Quinn.
Next order of business is digital learning update.
Ann Arpin, Director of Digital Learning, is with us this evening, and she'll talk about not only hardware, but software programs and improvements to the infrastructure. Ann has been the Director of Digital Learning for 12 years now. This is her 12th year. Go ahead.
Hi. Well, I'm happy to be here. Give you a recap on the opening days of school from the technology and digital learning perspective. Some of it might be a bit of a repeat for perhaps one of the school reports was, but nevertheless, I think the highlight was welcoming in and preparing and distributing 750 new Chromebooks to students at the secondary level. This is an exciting milestone in our district and a significant step towards realizing our digital literacy vision. We're officially 1-to-1 in grades 7 through 12. The students in these grades now have 24/7 access to digital resources the teachers are cultivating to engage and empower students and personalize their learning experience throughout all curriculum areas. Our digital learning coaches are off to a really great start, working with teachers to set up Google Classroom, facilitating the file setups for organizing their student documents, facilitating some of the open house displays for parents this week. You may have, I know in one school they did QR codes with the student's voice recording behind it. The parents could, snap a shot with their cameras and hear the student give them a nice message about the student goals this year. That was all facilitated by the digital learning coach. Working with grade level and or subject level groups to identify ways to transform more traditional lessons and activities into rich, personalized, and interactive experiences. With the first year under the belt, I can say they really have hit the ground running. So. We also acquired some key curriculum-based resources. These include products at the elementary level. One is called Freckle. It's a program that every student in grades 2 through 5 will be accessing frequently. They're looking at it on a daily basis for math and ELA. This particular program is an adaptive learning product that targets, again, math and ELA. It also does include some science and social studies components, depending on time and availability, access to resources, Chromebooks. Then we'll see how much time gets spent in the other areas, but the focus really is math and ELA. An adaptive learning program, just as a point of reference, it personalizes the learning by providing resources at an individual student level. They get a benchmark. The program, using machine learning techniques, identifies where the student is at and then continually adapts as they progress through the program. So at the end, I think the data that we'll get from that will show more precisely where a student is and their growth. ST Math is another product. This one is just at Fisher, but all K through 5. And it was partially funded by a grant that Mrs. Duggan worked with the program, the vendor. This program uses virtual manipulatives that really engage students in problem-solving various math concepts. So it's interactive and more engaging. At the middle schools, STEM Scopes is a new science program for grades 6 through 8, all science. This is online. It aligns directly with the next generation science standards. Training for that, as well as the other elementary programs, was already provided the first day of school. Teachers returned, were 2 of them, and another one just the week before last, I think. So teachers have been trained and are now actively working with the kids on those. At the high school, focus on the new 8-period schedule to develop intervention and academic support blocks is facilitated through a product now called FlexiSketch. And this is a program where students, staff or students, teachers or students can sign up for these different academic blocks. A teacher can send that schedule to the student. They say, well, you're needed in this academic support period during this study period that you have, or students can voluntarily sign up. So that piece of it is just getting off the ground, and I think it has some terrific potential for as we move throughout the year to add additional blocks and opportunities for students to for teachers to have other offerings and that students would also be able to sign up for. The high school also cataloged the vast majority of their textbooks into our Destiny Resource Manager system. Teachers checked out all the textbooks this year on a system that mirrors the library system. So there's an electronic record. They're being tracked. Much more efficient way of tracking these kinds of things. Students have a new dashboard on their Chromebooks, and a dashboard is basically, it's a page that automatically opens up as soon as they log into the Chromebook. It's a student resource page. It's customized based on the level, elementary, middle, high school, but basically when they log in, they're presented with a great visual page that has buttons that they can, that are active links to most popular programs that are in use at that school. So Google Drive, obviously, and then in the upper grades, it would include Aspen, and all of them also have the library program right there so that they can go there. Digital textbooks, the online links, so it's all in one kind of one-stop shopping, one-stop dashboard for these kids. Staff also have one as well, and that's been very well received as well, just a single page that we can find all our stuff that we need to get to. Other products have been purchased as well or enhanced to enable accuracy and efficiency with records, including the opening of the Aspen Parent Portal for our elementary parents. This summer, families were able to see the homeroom assignments through their secure Aspen login. And they'll be also able this year to see progress reports, report cards, and just released was the contact verification. So rather than the paper student profiles and packets of paper going home with these kids every day, you have 3 kids, you get 3 sets of paper, you have to fill them all out and sign them, return them, and the school has to translate them into their programs, and takes an extended amount of time with that. This enables the parents to go in online through their secure Aspen login, see what the information is, verify it. They can make certain changes. For example, if they need to change a neighbor as a contact, they can change that. Some things they cannot change, obviously. So that is underway. They've been asked to complete that by this week or next. I don't have the date, but then our records will be updated. And I think from a safety perspective, that's very important for us. That it's not going to take until November before we have the updated information on the kids' contacts. We also, I think you may have already been aware, but with the online registration was also developed through the Aspen product. So that product has been the gift that never ends, really, since we purchased it 11 years ago. It's been providing a lot of different features for us, all for the same yearly cost, no additional charges. On the equipment front, middle school, Bird Middle School phones were upgraded and integrated with our almost all district-wide system. OPR is the project that is remaining, and that, as you know, is on as a capital budget item for this fall. And that will then complete the phone upgrade project. We also received approval for E-rate funds to upgrade the cabling and access points for the wireless systems at Fisher and OPR. And that these funds will cover about 35% of the cost of that upgrade. So that kind of sums up the major initiatives. We've had a very productive summer and a very active start of the school year.
Excellent. We've come a long way from crowding around the schoolhouse door to see what your homeroom is.
That's right.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you also for being present with us for a number of building tours we had, most especially the MSBA senior site visit, which I think you were, a great asset to opening up closets in the middle schools and showing where all of our internal systems are. Does anyone else have any questions for Ann?
Yeah, another perspective, Ann, over the past 12 years has brought this department from $0 in the budget with no capital investment to an incredible infrastructure. There's admirable work being done in the schools. We have digital learning coaches. We have a 1-to-1, 7 through 12, 24/7 access, plus the 6th grade has access, 1-to-1 at school, and grades K through 5, pre-K through 5, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. So we have to thank the community, the school committee for supporting it, and for helping to organize that and work with our teachers. So we're in a very, very good place to continue through the 21st century. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the superintendent's goals, the committee just wanted to pause for a moment and acknowledge that Monday will be the first time in 28 years that Dr. Kenny will not be a full-time employee of our district. And we had just we want to report out to the community that we had a wonderful celebration for you yesterday. And as we talked about earlier in this meeting, I think you are the poster child for people excelling within, from teacher's aide to teacher to reading specialist, to assistant principal, to assistant superintendent. And there was a district thing in there too that I forgot.
Right,
so
she
the
started as a
curriculum-
substitute teacher.
Started as a substitute teacher. So I think, you know, our motto here is that we encourage all students to achieve excellence, and I think it's important for us to just pause once more and say that the students of the Walpole Public School District, thousands of them have been touched by your excellence and your commitment, and you leave tremendous shoes to fill. But luckily, I'm told, you'll be doing a little consulting for us and helping us here and there over
Right.
the next year, and we're happy to see that there's another generation of your grandchildren at Fisher School,
Right.
which some of us got to meet yesterday running around the high school cafeteria. So we just, for our vast listening audience and for, you know, it's important that we just once again pause and thank you for what you've done for this community, and acknowledge that you leave great shoes to fill, but we're also so excited that you've like your last mentee is our Dr. Goff, and I think that's a
Right.
great passing of the torch which we're witnessing in this community that is something special that Walpole has done, and is just draw people of great character and great ability together. So we just want to thank you, Dr. Kenny, once more. And this is perhaps one of your last meetings with us here at the school committee. Although I'm sure you're going to come to citizens' comments and with a number of questions. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't take this time to, you know, to honor Dr. Kenny. She has an enormous intellect and an enormous battery. She's like the ever-ready educator. Huge capacity to care for kids. How she has dedicated her life not only to the school district but also to her family. You could see it in her family yesterday. And our grandkids didn't want to leave. So, yeah, they're yelling across the cafeteria, "Nana, I love you." So it's pretty cool. It's pretty good to have a role model like that for all of our administrators. You know, I think it speaks. Her mentoring has contributed to this greatly to the stability of our leadership team and our teaching staff. You know, when we talk about the reduction of kids in needing additional services, I mean, Jean has had a huge part in new ELA programs, implementation of RTI, the restructuring of the math program, the recreation of the music program. I mean, you could just go on and on. The wellness department, we have asked her to spearhead quite a bit and work collaboratively with our teachers. And, you know, in Walpole, we just don't snap our fingers and have top-down management. You have to get in the trenches, you have to convince teachers, they have to have buy-in, and then it happens. It just doesn't happen overnight with a thought or a goal. It takes a lot of work and a lot of follow-up, and Jean's always been there for that. And I can tell you that the teachers love her. So what else can you say? What better tribute is that?
Thank you so much.
Right?
Thank you, Dr. Kenny. Ever forward, we now look at goals for the future for this year. We begin with superintendent goals.
My goals are in your packet. I think they dovetail the goals of the school committee and the leadership council, as well as the strategic plan. I have had meetings with the special ed department, with the curriculum new ELA coordinator. We've talked to our existing principals and any new principals coming in to talk about how can we create a better dashboard to report out to the school committee. That's always been something we've been struggling with, as many districts are, on growth. How do you measure human growth? How do you measure growth in fine arts and performing arts and health and science and math? That's a little more empirical. But you know, we'll continue to look at that, and hopefully before Thanksgiving we'll start reporting out to you student growth areas beyond just MCAS. Okay? That's one of my main focuses of the goals, and the rest are in your packet.
Very good. No action tonight, it's more of a
No, just
read them?
first reading.
Excellent. We have our second reading of school committee goals. I will find two of my typos before we begin. In the first goal, the timeline obviously should not begin in September of 17, but September of 18. And I know from some feedback, we want to change evidence of effectiveness from 3 reports or presentations at school committee meetings to reporting as needed. Those are the two things I caught. I'm sure other people read other things. Anybody want? Ms. Geller?
I was looking at goal number 4, which you said maybe we should bump it up to goal number 1. I
Did
kind
talk
of
about
like
that.
that idea. This is the one to strengthen the partnership between parents and the public schools in addressing bullying and student social and emotional health and school safety. I like the idea of bumping it up. In action step number 4, it says, I would consider amending it slightly to say, continue to pursue investments in school safety capital projects and required staff, rather than additional staff, we don't know that we need additional staff.
Right.
We need to determine that. So what I'm trying to say there is, let's determine that, and let's also prioritize staff training. I don't know that I have the wording exactly right. Pursue investments in school safety and capital projects and the necessary staff and staff training.
Yeah.
I might do something like that. And I would also say that communicating with the parents, students, and staff who want to work together to improve social emotional climate and decrease bullying and social isolation in our schools should be an action step.
So 6?
Yeah?
Okay. Good.
And in goal number 5, for the first action step that's listed there, I would say undertake a community survey as opposed to a climate survey. It's a little bit more general than that. I would just strike the word climate.
Anyone else?
For what it's worth, I like the idea of 3 presentations for each of those things because we just haven't been able to get to doing it. So I mean, so long as we get to doing it and it's somewhere around 3 presentations, I'll be fine. But I would prefer to keep the evidence of effectiveness to say 3 reports. It's just been a challenge. I'll strike it, but I just feel like we have to hold ourselves to getting some of these reports into our agendas.
3 reports of
Well, goal number 1.
specific topic.
Goal number 1 was continue to review instructional practices that students are being taught to be analytical and critical thinkers. It's been on our list for so long, but we haven't even had one. So that's why I like quantifying it. But, you know, I'll just, I'm not gonna stick to that. If people wanna take the number out, that's fine. I just think it's a priority to get some of these to our school committee agendas.
Yeah, I don't think we need the number 3, but evidence would be reports of, so we can strike the 3 and keep the reports of presentations at school committee meetings and make sure we get those into the agendas.
That'd be great, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, instead of saying, you had said as needed, right?
Right.
But I do agree with Nancy being on the curriculum committee,
Mhm.
you know, we bring this up a lot, and
Mhm.
not to say as needed because they are needed, so,
What if we say regular instead of
Yeah.
3?
I like regular.
yeah, I don't know what that means. It's hard to determine a number, but I do understand your point that
Mhm.
as needed could be, who determines that?
Right, right.
And I'm hoping with that new Freckle program that will, because it's more adaptive, we'll see some reports.
And we are moving 4 to 1. People feel done. Excellent. Very good. May I have a motion to approve the school committee goals for the 2018-2019 school committee as amended?
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Lucchini,
Second?
second by Mrs. Gallivan. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Moving on. Capital update.
So, Mr. Chairman, we met with the Finance Committee since the last meeting, and they voted unanimously to support the school feasibility study. The feasibility study will now be presented to town meeting contingent upon MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, acceptance into their grant program. They call it an invitation. So the feasibility study would be designed to look at different options, including building a new high school, consolidating the middle schools, and moving them into the existing high school, building a new middle school, renovation and add, or a new middle school for the aging middle schools, renovating the middle schools, or any other option that any board votes to bring forth to the school committee. The process would include a separate school building committee to oversee the project, and a owner's project manager eventually down the road. And the schematics, any traffic studies, land studies, educational plan implementation would all be included in this feasibility study, as well as the cost of the owner's project manager, which is mandated by MSBA. So that vote will happen at the next fall town meeting. We recently entertained a visit from MSBA officials. We had about 8 officials or less come and review the 2 middle schools. They looked at overcrowding. They looked at 21st century learning spaces that may be inadequate. They reviewed any findings we had that spaces were inadequate as determined by the Department of Education. They looked at mechanicals, boiler rooms, gymnasiums, auditoriums, cafeterias, traffic flow patterns in hallways, roofs, etc., windows. So they have a good idea of where we stand with our infrastructure right now in our 2 middle school buildings, which is the genesis of this feasibility study. So the board will make the findings will be brought to the board of MSBA, which is a division of the State Treasurer's Department, and they will decide on December 12th whether or not to invite Walpole into the building process. An invitation doesn't mean a building. An invitation means they will pay for about half of the feasibility study, and then we will determine whether or not we can come to agreement with them on a solution. And then they would then move the funding along at that percentage, whether it's the funding of renovations or new construction or additions, that's to be determined. So I'd be happy to answer questions. I do want to make note, normally we focus on smaller items, and this year we haven't left that behind. We've asked for $45,000 for Chromebooks for the middle school, the elementary level, to provide equity in all the elementary buildings, as well as start a replenishment program. We've asked for a school safety improvements in the amount of $50,000 to enhance our surveillance cameras for safety and security reasons, specifically in stairwells and exteriors that are not covered by the existing system. We asked to finish the old, replacing the old phone systems, the last school to be replaced as Old Post Road, and this is also a safety issue where now teachers can call 911 from their classrooms if needed. We've asked for a minibus to defer a lot of the costs that are going out to private contractors for athletic transportation primarily. But as you know, Ken Gable was here tonight, and we've talked about SEMSBA candidates using the bus, district candidates, robotics could use the bus, small field trips. And we expect it will save about $20,000 a year for a cost of $55,000, and that was supported. This would be a white bus versus a yellow bus, and instead of having to train 7D drivers with special licenses and high cost per hour, our coaches, our teachers, our administrators can drive this vehicle once they receive some training. In fact, that's a requirement. We can't hire CDL people. It has to be done as a cost-saving measure. So I like the initiative by the state. It makes a lot of sense, and these vehicles are available on state bid. They're more robust than a regular van that you'd buy for a home. They have stainless steel floors. They have marine-grade particle board for the For the interior, they have upgraded suspension, so the students will be safe. So the focus again is on safety.
Especially around transportation. We heard some of the deficiencies of private contractors. Mr. Fisher says all the time, and I think it's worth repeating, we don't want to be in the transportation business, but in order to rise above and in order to continue to give the taxpayers of Walpole the greatest bang for their buck possible and to continue to pursue efficiencies, we find ourselves looking at this again. I think it's great that we can continue to do things like that and continue to find ways to just provide better services. Anything else on the other capital items? Seeing none, moving on to the recurring section of our school committee for meetings for this early part of the school year, the Safe Schools Initiative subgroup report. We just want to begin by speaking very briefly about the parent survey. We were delighted to have 675 respondents to that. I know we pushed that greatly, and we were even more delighted to receive a tremendous amount of individualized feedback, and the committee, as a sort of progress report, is now digesting and reviewing each of those comments left at the end, and also comments left in some of the drop-down portions of it. There's a large, I have them here, a large amount of respondents and a large amount of questions, many of whom are pretty complex. So we as a group are individually looking at that, and we will have a more robust report in our October 8th meeting of the Safe Schools. 9th? That's right, literally right in front of me. The October 9th meeting of the Safe Schools Initiative, which will be at the Bird Middle School cafeteria at 7 p.m. And we're also looking to kind of condense, maybe in a couple of pages, the major themes for the wider community as well, which has been looking at this very closely. Our next piece under the Safe School Initiative subgroup report will be data reporting. I believe that's Mr. Hahn.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to be part of the data group because I like concrete data. I learned very quickly that data combined with reporting is not always as concrete. So I thought that I would share two things tonight. Some of the questions and confusion around our reporting to the state and the state reporting out to the public, and talk very briefly about some of the requests from the state that have not been pursued yet. I'll talk about that one second, and then also really quickly go over the data focus group recommendations because they're related to some of the things we'll be speaking to. So I've explained this to a lot of different people in many different ways, and I think I figured out the best way to explain this. Each year, DESE, Department of Education, collects data from every school district on most incidents that have discipline related to them. So we know that they collect any incidents of bullying. What we've learned is that what the state actually reports out on, however, to the public through their website are incidents of bullying that result in removal discipline, traditionally known as suspension. So I want to give a concrete year for Walpole to make the most sense. We know in 2015 and 2016, Walpole reported 7 incidents of bullying from our district. We know that if you go on DESE's website and you look up that information from 2015 and 2016, only 1 incident of bullying is reported out. And just to be clear, that is because only 1 incident of bullying that year required removal discipline. So this is an area that our focus group has spent quite a bit of time on. And even in tonight, the conclusion of tonight's meeting, there were some members from the group that just wanted to write a joint email to confirm this is actually accurate, because there still is a lot of questions from some members of the community around this reporting piece. I did receive an email from Robert Curtin, who's the Associate Commissioner of Data and Accountability, who did clarify that we have accurately reported data and incidents of bullying to the state, and that what our community members or what families are reading from the website is what is reported out by DESE. That includes removal discipline. So I know even that explanation, that's as clear as I think I can get it, but I even know that the explanation sometimes come with questions. And to be fair to the committee that meant tonight, we did send an email to get just one more clarification from some people that had potentially given us conflicting information. And finally, the other thing that I thought I would mention tonight is that the change to the law in 2014 asked that all district collect data on allegations of bullying, and I just want to be clear around that as well, that DESE's legal counsel has made a ruling that that would be an undue process for each of the towns and the districts. So that information actually has not been collected or reported on, and that is consistent for the entire state, not just unique for the town of Walpole. And when they do start to pursue collecting that data and that information, they have confirmed they will be providing professional development to help us do that, and the means in which they expect to collect that information and data as well. And finally, I think it's probably relevant. I know we'll be sharing it on the 9th, but because of all the confusion, I do think the group has done a lot of really great work, and we have some awesome parents and community members on the committee that have put in a lot of time. So I just want to quickly go over what we've recommended in case there's any questions. One piece that we thought is that because there's been some questions around data reporting, that we would provide more information on how data is collected and reported in the state, to the state, excuse me, in the town's bullying prevention intervention plan, since that can be confusing, so that parents don't think that we're not reporting out on incidents that we actually are. Establish more ways to communicate standard practices around bullying prevention intervention to parents and community stakeholders. And we would obviously work with the subgroup that's doing that work already, specifically in the context of data. Establish better communication to victims' parents, and school staff by creating an alert in the student profile that includes a safety plan that will allow, we do this already, we communicate safety plans, but this came up because we want to be able to use our student system through X2 to make sure that we can demonstrate to families, to victims, everyone, that this is the safety plan for a student, and this is the information stored in a confidential way to share, to communicate with those that would need that information. We talked about creating a procedure to select and determine incidents clearly defined by a certain set of criteria, because we discussed at length with the focus group, with the committee, excuse me, that that what an incident that we might view as harassment, a fight, or bullying, they might have some things in common, and oftentimes that is discussed among colleagues and peers and administration, but trying to find a more objective criteria would be helpful. And then finally, what we really came to tonight that we thought was really important was to provide the superintendent with the most transparency as possible to share data on implemented safety plans for the June report. And that would just be our way, as we know that the state is eventually going to collect allegations, and we want to make sure that the community knows that we are transparent as a school system, and we want to share all the information that we can with the community. And so one area that we thought we could really share is how many safety plans we have in place for each of the allegations, for each of the investigations, or for the bullying that is occurring in our schools. And that was a topic we spoke at length about tonight. So I take any questions, because I know some of this information is not always totally clear, and some things I can take your questions and take them to the right people if I don't have the answers.
Hi. Thanks for all this work too. It sounds like a heck of a lot of work, and I love hearing about the increased communication that's going to happen, because I feel like in the survey, I know we haven't discussed it, but that was kind of a constant theme about perhaps wanting more communication that's clear and concise and consistent. And I'm one who's really happy to hear about the safety plan, just because I think that's something that if we're doing, that's great, everyone should know about, because it's sort of a no-brainer to help a kid feel safe and for a family to feel better about a situation, and it's great to hear. It sounds like we are doing it, maybe we just haven't publicized it quite as much. But my specific question is about the removal discipline, just as something I've heard from parents before. Where can people find that? Is there a specific criteria? Did you say I missed that from DESE, or?
So DESE, on their website, under the student tab, they report out, how do I explain this? They collect data based on a certain code, which is, it could be, most of the time it's more severe incidents that require discipline, but it can be, I think it's one of about 18 different codes that they collect on, and some of those codes have A, Bs, and Cs underneath, so a lot more. So they collect all incidents that meet that code, but they only report out on incidents that have led to suspension.
Right, that piece I understand. I guess I was asking more specifically because people have asked, like, how does that become determined that that's the consequence of removal discipline? It sounds like we don't have to do it much.
That's under the law. So
Right, but where would people find that? I mean,
so
just because
37H and H&a-half, we did handouts at the meeting
Okay.
that laid out schools.
Yeah,
are-
it's also in our code of
Did
conduct.
we post that? Okay.
Yeah,
all
we
right.
talk about.
Sorry, I don't know.
No, it's
that. I
okay. It's a
just-
great
yeah.
question. And also in our code of conduct that, we follow, we talk about, discipline and what an incident might, require in terms of discipline. And most of the time that's progressive and very thoughtful. But yeah, code of conduct would indicate as a district what we do.
And then that's on the district website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for each
Then
for
in
Each
each
school.
elementary,
handbooks
middle,
as well from
and
each-
high school.
Okay, just so I wanted to spell that out, because
Yeah,
sometimes
it's a
people
really
don't know
good
where to
question.
find it, and so that's
That's a
great.
good point. Other questions, concerns? Thank you. Mrs. Gallivan?
I just want to thank you, Bill. I think you're doing a really good job because it's messier than it looked like it was going to be at first. And, I think that the communication people are going to need to work carefully with us. A thought that I had was we maybe need a page on our website specific to the Safe School Initiative, because even if it's just people wanting to know when the next subcommittee meetings are and where are they, or more, some of the real basic information that is answers to questions. We might want to do a Q&A section there, because people are very pleased once they get the information. But the first subcommittee meeting, there were fewer parents than there were at tonight's, but that there are other people that still have those same questions that aren't answered. So, I think that one of the things we heard this summer was, let's make sure that we reach the people who aren't available to come to a meeting during the school day or at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night or whatever.
We could put that together. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you. Finally, just once again, the next meeting of the Safe School Initiative will be October the 9th, 2018, at the Byrd Middle School cafeteria at 7 p.m. Mrs. Syrick.
Yes, I just wanted to make a plug for the Communications Subcommittee, which is happening on October 3rd at 7 in the Town Hall. So we keep raising a lot of communications issues. Some came up in the Data Subcommittee, so hopefully some of those people who hadn't signed up will still come next week so we can make sure that we're marrying all these pieces together.
We're in Town Hall?
Town Hall, I think it's 112.
Well, thank you.
Excellent.
And can I add?
Yes, please.
The Parent-Student School Subcommittee meeting is next week, October 4th, at 7 p.m. in the Walpole High School cafeteria. And that's our same subcommittee is planning a parent information and collaboration night for Monday, October 25th. And it's in response to what the subcommittee has talked about, the need to try to bring the community together to now say, what are we going to do to become stronger and more aware and more collaborative in our approach. So there'll be a flyer coming out, but we really need everybody on school committee and all the administrators to help with the advertising of the meeting on October 25th.
You can do that.
Very good. Moving on, subcommittee reports. It is that time of year again. Fales, Leach, Rogers, and Cundy scholarship application. Ms. Gallivan, some historical perspective.
Sure. So there's a scholarship, a set of scholarships that are awarded every year through the generosity of four families who had connections to the Walpole School Committee. In their wills, they left money for current college students. So anyone who is currently an undergrad in college should consider applying for the Fales, Leach, Rogers, and Kundi scholarships. They're competitive scholarships, and it's an extremely generous thing that the Walpole community offers to our college students. It's wonderful to see how many students are doing really well, and it's just one of our favorite things to do every year, but it's important that the students who are in college are aware of this. So it gets advertised here, it gets advertised in the Walpole Times. The applications are available online at the Walpole Public Schools website, and there are paper applications if somebody doesn't want to do the online ones in the superintendent's office. And I would just encourage the college kids to apply for this. There's no guarantee that everybody's going to get a scholarship because it doesn't work that way. On the other hand, we've got some tremendous kids doing some tremendous things, and it's a great way to help pay for your education.
I know it's to echo that, it's one of my favorite things when there's a committee. And just, again, if you know someone in college, please, we really encourage it. It's wonderful to have such a really big pool, and some years the pool is a little smaller. So we've got the month of October, so tell your friends.
Yeah. And it's a significant amount of money. It's up to $60,000 some years that's distributed.
Yeah.
So
Total.
I think,
Total.
yeah,
Total.
Well, of course. So parents, it's worth the effort, whether it's 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 500, at least give it a shot.
Bill, one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to point out that especially students that are at Framingham State University or Boston University have increased odds because the Kundi Scholarship is specifically targeted towards students at those two schools because of the affiliation that the Kundi family had there. So that's Framingham State and Boston University.
Excellent. Any other subcommittees? Have any citizens' comments? Anybody at all? Seeing none, Article 7, approval of warrants, donations, and minutes.
Great. I would like to make a motion to approve the payroll warrant from September 20th, warrant number S912A for the amount listed in your packet.
A motion by Ms. Syrick, a second by Ms. Muccini. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants from September 20th, warrant 219012, and from the 27th, warrant number 219013 for the amounts listed in your packet.
Motion by Ms. Syrick, second by Ms. Gaotitz. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Would someone please read the gifts?
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations to the system-wide school system from Middlesex Savings Bank Teacher and Curriculum Development Initiatives to be split between the 6 schools, $1,250, and to the Boyden School and Fisher Schools, Bay State Textiles Recycling, total of $120.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mrs. Syrick. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500. Approval of minutes. Any motion? To approve the minutes of the September 13th and September 18th.
Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from September 13th, 2018.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Mrs. Gallivan. All those in favor?
Point of information, did you say 13th, September 13th or the 18th?
13th.
The 13th is the 18th is a
Regular meeting,
workshop.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make
That's
sure
my
we're
next
clear.
one. And a motion to approve the workshop meeting minutes for September 18th, 2018.
Motion by Ms. Muccini, second by Ms. Gaotitz. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, 500.
Mention the walk to school.
Oh, yeah. So we are excited to have the Walk to School at Old Post Road School on Wednesday, October 3rd 2018, it's nothing I like more than lecturing kids about physical fitness. Well, that's a rough assembly afterwards. But I know many of the parents there are going. It's been
Yeah,
heavily
very well
publicized.
attended, yeah.
We get a lot of folks, our partners in government from the town also join us. I hope many of you can join us as well. The rain date is October the 5th.
And there is no need for an executive session, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Who will be Mark Brain this evening?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
A motion to adjourn by Ms. Ghost, second by Ms. Muccini. All those in favor, opposed, abstained, 500.